Hello, everyone. It is January 16, and I'd like to talk. And in this political monologue, we're going to talk about why the progressive agenda in Congress has failed. So everyone knows now that every bill after bill, legislation after legislation that the Biden administration has pushed has all failed. The biggest one, of course, is the Build Back Better, but now the Voter Rights Act, or whatever they call it, that has failed as well, which I'm not going to talk about, by the way. But the Build Back Better, that's really the crown jewel of the Biden administration's aspirations for its first term, and that was, of course, a very strongly progressive piece of legislation. It would have expanded the government to a great extent, a lot of welfare programs, a lot of supposedly, allegedly egalitarian type of action to level the playing field, college tuition coverage, medical coverage for everyone, child tax credit, climate change action. I don't even know actually the details of what's in there, but yeah, lots of spending and definitely a lot to satisfy the progressive platform. So, question is, why did it fail? So, here's my answer. Folks. If you think about it, if you go back in time a little bit, if you remember, it was Bernie Sanders, who first rose to prominence on a progressive platform. He almost won I say almost, I mean, yeah, that's my take on this. Of course, a lot of the mainstream would say he didn't almost win, but I think he almost won the 2016 nomination, and he should have won, and he was cheated by the machinations by the Clinton campaign, including its collusion with the Democratic National Committee. But anyway, I don't go into details here. Even if you disagree with that, the point I'm making here is that he was the first major Democratic politician to run on a progressive platform, and he succeeded in insinuating, in folding in the progressive agenda into the official Democratic platform in the next cycle. Because in 2016, of course, the Republicans won, but in 2020, okay, in this cycle, the Democrats won. Okay, so the Democrats ousted Trump. Biden did win, and he won with a promise to the progressives of co-opting and adopting their wishes. And so where am I going with all this? So the question is, why did it fail now? So my opinion is that if in 2016 Sanders would have won the Democratic nomination, which he should have, like I said, he was cheated out of it, then there would have been an enormously bigger chance that the progressive agenda would have actually passed and become the rule of the land. Yeah. So, but instead, what happened is that the Democrats only came to power in 2020 when the pandemic was already in full swing. And the pandemic really changed the calculus a great deal. Why? Because if you think about it, virtually everything the government has done in response to the pandemic, and virtually everything that the economy and the markets have done in response to the pandemic has been egalitarian and / progressive. Here are some of the items. The government has been giving extended unemployment. That's a progressive thing. Child tax credit payments. They've been making hold on a second. Before I get to that, stimulus payments. Okay, that's progressive. Number 3, child tax credit payments. They've been sending checks every single month, $500-$600. Depending on how many children you have, they've been sending every month. That's an insanely progressive thing. That was unthinkable. Even to the sensibilities of the most left in this country, no one had envisioned this, no one had advocated this, and now they've done it, right? And of course, it was an emergency measure. You're not going to do it indefinitely. Supposedly, that's what they say, of course, but they did it, right? So that's very progressive. The thing medically that is most pressing on people's minds, which is namely, of course, the coronavirus, the novel coronavirus, it's medically covered by the federal government. If you get hospitalized with COVID, the government pays for it. You don't have to have insurance. They're never going to reject you. The hospitals love you because they milk the government for all it's worth. To them, you're a cash cow. So that's progressive. So medically speaking, again, the coronavirus tends to overshadow all the other medical issues out there. It shouldn't, but it does. So where is the pressing need for Medicare for all, as Sanders puts it, when we already have Medicare for all with respect to the medical issue that is most conspicuous and pressing in people's minds, namely the coronavirus, right? So, you have progressivism there. Regarding child care, again, you have the child tax credit, that takes care of that. Regarding, let's see, what else? Regarding jobs, minimum wages, now you have with a shortage of labor out there, all the prices jumped up. So the whole need for a minimum wage law is completely annihilated. It's just been wiped out literally overnight. In the course of a few months, the market went from whatever the prevailing wage was, it jumped by $2-3 an hour. Nowadays they're paying $4 or $5 an hour, more than $2-3 an hour. They're paying $4 an hour more than they would have paid a year ago, or more. And so crazy what's happened. And so all of this rationale for the progressive, for the core issues on the progressive agenda, it's just no longer there because it's happened already on its own. Arguably, you could say that the two items that are still unresolved is climate change and education. Okay, so no action has been taken on education, and no action, of course, has been taken on climate change. But those two things you got to put asterisks in there because I don't think that these are core tenets in the progressive platform. So let's dissect these. When it comes to climate change, the progressives argue that this is an existential threat. But if you think about it, it doesn't resonate with people's instincts, political instincts, and certainly not their economic needs or their environmental needs. Like when people think of their own needs around them, around their communities, around their own properties, they don't see any recent climate change, any recent weather patterns that would lead them to panic regarding climate change. If anything, of course, the progressives argue that it's a long-term thing. It's very gradual. It happens very slow. The sea levels are rising. You're seeing more frequent hurricanes. It's very not easily discernible, but it's there, and the scientists know that it's happening, and you just got to trust the scientists. But if you're going with that argument, which of course doesn't really resonate, you never really have anything in American political history where such a an agenda has captivated large audiences of people, of voters. But let's assume that this type of political impulse works. And by this type, what I mean is the political impulse that is driven by a vision of the long-term future. Okay, so let's say that such a political impulse works. Well, guess what? What about the national debt? Why would that not be an even more pressing issue? Okay, again, it's not immediate, right? Immediate, no. We're fine. In fact, we're fine. We're even more fine if we spend even more now, right? But in the long term, it's a disaster because the more we spend now, the more we have to pay back, and the piper is going to come knocking soon, and it's going to demand payment, and you got to pay the piper. So, if you want to have a long-term vision about politics, and so like I said, there isn't a lot of coherence in the fact that the progressives have chosen this versus the other. And regarding college education, the fact that the wages have gone up so significantly for the lowest stratum of the workforce means that a lot of the people who previously would have been a very prime target for this type of activism, right? Namely, we want to have free education, right? A lot of these people are no longer there. They're no longer interested because when 2 years ago, a year ago even, but definitely 2-3 years ago before the pandemic, people, the job market was normal. It was difficult to find a job. And, even a cheap job was difficult to find for a lot of people, at least. But for those who could find them, they didn't make much money. They made they made $10-12 an hour for these entry-level jobs, and the elites promised them, hey, if you go to college, you can make a lot more. You can make $40, $50, $60, $70,000 a year. So it was very promising, and so it was very tempting for them to say, hey, I cannot afford college. If you only help me go to college, I can better my lot. But now this doesn't ring true anymore, because now these very same people are thinking to themselves, hey, I can better my lot by simply just taking a job. Okay? And that already pays college level wages. And if I go to college, I can make the same amount, because the college level jobs have not gone up at the same level as the non-college level jobs right now. Okay? So the impetus for going to college is not there anymore, as it was in the past, and therefore the impetus for government funding of college education is also not there anymore. And so, bottom line is, when it's all said and done, is that in a very twisted and ironic way, and in an unforeseeable way, and it didn't have to be this way, but I don't know, maybe it just perchance worked out this way. The pandemic has essentially leveled everything. It has leveled the field. It's the French Revolution, it's the French Revolution, and it's a virus that did it, and the whole progressive agenda is just rendered mute. I say mute? Moot. Is rendered moot. It's no longer necessary. There's no impetus for it anymore. And so this is why, I think this is the main reason why the Build Back Better thing has failed. In fact, I would say the biggest issue on people's minds right now is inflation, which is actually the flip side of high wages, right? We have high wages, we like it, but then the costs are higher. So the biggest issue right now is inflation, and expanding the government, to the extent that the progressives want with BBB, Build Back Better, is actually even worse. Is made worse by. Inflation is made worse tenfold by doing so. So if anything, now the impetus is in the reverse. It's we don't want more progressivism. We want to curb the rising wages, because rising wages means rising inflation. So we want to keep it down now. So it's actually the opposite of what people want now. Again, 2 years ago it was different, right? But now things have changed. The calculus has changed. But I think that the progressives have not caught up. They're still in that mindset of 2 years ago. Things have changed a lot, a great deal in the last year, especially in the last year. But the pandemic has been a sea change in American economy and in American politics.